Altogether, I think I'm somewhere over 95 books that I've produced so far.
Welcome to the Eden Podcast, where we true the verse of Genesis 3:16, and we discover that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way. Welcome to our special interview. I'm Dr. Joy Fleming, and I'm with Bruce, my husband, as we visit with our favorite seminary professor and friend, Dr. Walter Kaiser. Dr. Kaiser has a PhD from Brandeis University. He is a distinguished professor emeritus of Old Testament and president emeritus of Gordon-Conwell Theological Seminary in South Hamilton, Massachusetts. Dr. Kaiser has written over 40 books, including Toward an Exegetical Theology, Biblical Exegesis for Preaching and Teaching, The Messiah in the Old Testament, and The Promise Plan of God. He also co-authored an introduction to Biblical Hermeneutics, The Search for Meaning. Dr. Kaiser and his wife Nancy live in southeastern Wisconsin. Dr. Kaiser's website is www.walterckaiserjr.com. We remember Dr. Kaiser for the twinkle in his eye as he led small group chapels, spoke from pulpits far and wide, taught each of us in our Old Testament exegesis classes, and was involved in church planting. Dr. Kaiser has served on the board of Bible Study Fellowship, BSF, and has written materials for them on many passages, and that includes the book of Revelation, which is the book everyone is studying right now. BSF has played a big part in my life. Dr. Kaiser, I think you remember that it was through my mother, Gracie Lasky, who, along with her sister, brought BSF to the Twin Cities in 1969. And she was the first teaching leader in the Twin Cities and continued for many years, and later was an area advisor for several states. So we've had various connections through the years here. And Dr. Kaiser, it is always a pleasure to talk with you. I have such fond memories of good conversations with you when I was a seminary student. And since then, you taught me Hebrew exegesis and Old Testament. And I remember having many wonderful courses with you. One time I recall, and this is the only time in my several years as an MDiv student, that I got a little discouraged living in an environment where some of the male students, not all, but a few, were hostile to female MDiv students. And this was at Trinity. And I just didn't come to class for 1 or 2 weeks. And you noticed my absence and sent me a message saying that you were missing me in class. And that was very considerate of you, Dr. Kaiser, and that was enough to pull me out of that funk. So I returned to class and never looked back. So thank you so much.
Oh, good.
Right. So we have a few questions that we would like to ask you. And the first one is about your faith story. Could you tell us a little about how you came to faith in Jesus Christ?
Well, I grew up on a farm outside of Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, our farm was right behind the Philadelphia International Airport. So uh, there I went to public school. I was born in 1933, which is so far back the chickens can't even count it now. But at any rate, went to first grade. I didn't get to kindergarten, but while I was at Gordon-Conwell as president, we had a K 3 through 5 kindergarten there, and we had a graduation each year. About 200 young students. We put them in white sheets and made robes for them. And they said, "We heard you didn't get to go to kindergarten. So today we're going to make you an honorary member of the kindergarten class. So I've completed my education with that particular enrollment. But at any rate, in fourth grade, I had at our church, which was just 2 blocks away from the public school, a revival meetings as they had every fall and spring. It was traditional in this, which was sort of like a Bible church, independent church, and they had children's classes in the afternoon. So I invited my whole fourth grade class, which had 17 members, and I think everyone came, even though
Wow.
some were Roman Catholic and some were nothing at all, and other branches of Protestantism. And I remember they did a flannel graph lesson. Those were days in which high tech was really flannel graph. And we used to marvel how those things stayed up on that screen. They were separate and they were pasted individuals and put them right on the flannel graph, and it stayed stuck. But there they gave the passage from Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and will open the door, I will come in to him and will sup or will eat with him. Well, that was the lesson for that day. And I'm praying for my buddy Frank and for Florence and for Jane. And I'm going through the whole list on the class. And the Lord seemed to say to me, Walter, you've never made a public profession. So that's when I claimed that I made a public profession and said, Lord, you come into my heart too,
Uh,
even as you said in Revelation 3:20. So that began a series in which we were on this farm outside of Philadelphia, and I'd never been away, but our pastor, who had just returned from the Navy, uh, he came and was our pastor, and he graduated from Wheaton College. So my mother said, well, you should go to Wheaton College. And we were poor as church mice, but he said, no, if the Lord wants you there, he'll provide. So you find a job and others will try to help. Well, sure enough, uh, when I graduated from high school, I went all the way out to Illinois. Well, that first semester almost killed me. I was homesick as could be. I had
um,
never been away from home before, oldest of 6 children, and I got to help with all of the stuff around the farm and around the house. But now it was time to go off. And Lord help me through that first semester, which was tough indeed. But then I got involved in Sunday school work. We had 20 different Sunday schools with about, I would say, 30 to 66 uh, students, college students, who would teach the lessons on the Sunday afternoon at these Sunday classes all through South and North Chicago. And I can remember particularly one time where I began with threes and fours whose attention span is a nanosecond each. And you really had to get the message across quickly. And we were not in the nicest kinds of environment. We're down in the heater room where they also had a baptistry and regularly had people come down. And they had quite an emotional baptismal service in which we were trying to teach during that whole thing. But then I was promoted to 8 through 10 years old. And there I was put upstairs in a circle. And I remember one Sunday, I had my Bible in one hand and my magic lesson in the other hand, and I'm trying to teach. And with that, I had two twins, Jeremiah and Nehemiah. I don't know which was which, but one guy got up and slugged his brother and knocked him out cold. Well, the other boys said, "Man, did you see that? Did I see it? There he was, corpus delicti, laying on the floor." And I thought, what a waste. This is going nowhere. And Freddie said to me, put his hand up. He said, "Mr. Wall, always use your first name, put Mr. in front of it. Mr. Wall," they said, uh, "how do you receive Jesus?" And I said, "Well, Freddie, not today. This is going to be a mess." I don't know why I said that was the wrong thing, but he insisted. He said, "No, today." And so I said, "Well, I'll dismiss the rest of the class because the teaching period was over." And they all ran outside to meet my other room partner, which guided them home. And she was waiting for me to come out. Well, I explained to Freddie the way of salvation. I said, "Do you understand? Do you have any questions?" "No." I said, "Would you like to pray with me?" He said, "I've never prayed before." I said, "Well, would you pray after me?" So I prayed the sinner's prayer and he prayed. And I said, "Do you have any further questions?" "No." He ran out the door. Now, part of my living in Wheaton was a housing across the tracks in which we got room rent for a whole semester for $69 a
Mm.
semester.
Oh,
And But the people said, "We want you to come and watch the evening news from 10 to 10:30, which is Central Time. You get it at 10 o'clock." And so I'm watching a closer, and they said, "We had a tragedy this day on State Street in Chicago, and Freddie Wilson was hit and killed." That was the same boy that had insisted that no, I should tell him the way of salvation. So I never say not today uh,
oh, yes.
to a boy, for it was quite an experience. So from that, I went on and went to the graduate school, and then they needed a teacher in Bible, so they asked me if I would teach the college level two classes. And then the president said, "Would you fill in for one more year?" So I did. And at the end of the time, he said, "You did a good job." He said, "Walter, are you going to go and get a PhD?" "No," I said, "Dr. Edmond, Jesus is coming back. There's not time for that." And he said, "Walter, listen, if God calls you to parse Hebrew verbs, even while he's coming back, you better be parsing Hebrew verbs." So I decided I would parse Hebrew verbs, went on to work on the MA and then the PhD in Hebrew and Semitic studies.
Now,
But that's
if
the
I can mention,
background.
if I could break in a second here, Dr.
Yeah,
Kaiser, I remember you were at our small group chapel then. This was up at Trinity.
yeah.
And you had to you had to go to Brandeis and make a present and show that you knew your Hebrew. And you asked the small group there in the men's dorm where I happened to be part of the group. You said, "Would you pray for me while I'm gone and then pray me back?" So we did. And when you came back, you said, "I was on the train to go out to Brandeis, and I took one last time and I opened up my Hebrew Bible and I read the page I had in front of me, and I made sure I knew all those words in that one page. And then I went into the room, and the person who inspected me said, 'Would you open your Bible and read a page?' And you opened your Bible, and it fell to that page. And
Yeah.
you aced it. You
Yeah.
aced the test, and you came back praising the Lord for his graciousness.
Yeah, the Lord is very good to those who are weak-minded. But at any rate,
I
that's
think
the
blessed.
story of
Yeah, we're
my
glad.
conversion, and also how I went on then to actually, I went to Brandeis, finished up, came back, and taught there because I had to teach 2 years because they gave me off 2 years. So I owed that to the college. And then I was invited to go to Trinity. So then I went to Trinity in 1966,
Mhm.
and was there until 19, let's see, 93. And then from there, I went to Gordon-Conwell outside of Boston. And there I taught for 4 years. But in the fourth year, the board came and said, we'd like to put your name as president of the seminary. Well, I said, I love teaching too much. Let me just teach. And they said, no, if God calls you, you better go. And so I said, all right, but I really don't think I'm your man. And they said, what sign would you require? And I said, well, I think if the whole board of 30 members all agreed, then go, because I said, I know faculties and boards, and they don't agree that much. And he came back and he said, well, you're it. I said, what about the board? He said, they all agreed. I said, what did you do to them? So
Oh,
that led to our uh, serving there from, let's see, was that in the middle 90s, and we served all the way for 9 years up to 2005.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's part of it. And then recently we did lots of speaking and teaching during that period of time. And I then dropped out of a cutback as much as I could on speaking, and started writing books. I'm in the midst of doing a series of 15 or more books on the character studies of the key men of the Bible. Abraham, let's see, Joshua, Moses, on so forth, all the way down. I've got about 12 of them. So altogether, I think I'm somewhere over 95 books that I've produced so far.
mm,
Yeah.
very prolific writer. Well, that's
Well,
wonderful to get the word out like that.
True 316 Foundation is the home of the Eden podcast. Join us for $3.16 a month or more. Let's chew the verses on the key passages on women and men. Go to true316.com/partner. True 316 is strengthening and encouraging many, and we're getting stories every day of lives changed through our ministry. We're the home of the Eden podcast, and we're getting the word out that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way. Our volunteer help is wonderful, and we grow stronger with each new true partner who gives to the True 316 Foundation so that we can cover the costs to do the technical work of the Eden podcast, to coordinate our True School workshops like the 2-week Eden workshop on Genesis 2 and 3, and to make the True 316 Foundation function in its outreach to scholars and students around the world. You can give now with a one-time gift. And better still, you can join now and become a monthly donor. We call our monthly donors our true partners. Please join now by going to true316.com/partner.